Today is July 4th, 2024, Independence Day, the day we celebrate freedom. And I personally celebrate freedom to the most extreme possible. In 1773, this country had the start to a revolution that ended in 1776. But it started with the Boston Tea Party, and it was all over a 2% sales tax on tea. And today you look around and we are robbed of 20 to 30% of our entire life's work. You got to think about, we wake up every day for our entire lives, and 1 out of every 5 days is ripped from us. And we give it to the government to waste on frivolous things that we don't agree with. And we can see how they spend our money frivolously and waste it on things that we don't believe in and don't want. So today I propose a peaceful way to step away from what they do and have a voluntary way in which we decide how to do things. So instead of being robbed of our taxes, we voluntarily give the government what we want, and they work from the budgets that they are given. And tomorrow we will balance the budget by giving them the budgets that we decide. And they're no longer able to write blank checks and rob from our children and spend endless money and force us into debt and do all the ways in which they waste money. They get what we give them. And we could also take the money and invest it local and raise our communities up locally and make them stronger than ever before. And it's a different way of thinking, but it's where we the people stand up and we make a difference, and we put the power back in the people's hands. And today is that day, and I'm doing that battle all alone on my own and taking the entire federal government on by myself. But if it leads to other people being able to stand up as well, I think that we can make a change and make it for the better. So this is the start of hopefully something much bigger. And anybody who loves liberty, please follow along and keep up and just see where this journey takes us. So the rest of this video is just going to talk a little bit more about that, and I just appreciate everybody for keeping up and standing along. Thank you guys. It's a very big day for me because freedom is my core philosophy in this world and what I base everything around and everything I'm trying to do. Ultimately, I believe that if we could create more freedom in this world, we would create peace. Because all we really want is the freedom to do our own thing and be left alone. And we don't want to be forced to do what anybody else wants us to, you know? We just want to do our own thing. And we don't want to be forced to live by anybody else's rules or laws. And how do we achieve freedom in this world that we live in nowadays? And so that's what I'm going to break down and talk about today. I believe in freedom more than most people, for sure. I believe it to my core, and I like to talk a lot about philosophy. So I want to talk about my philosophy on freedom and basically ask the same question out into the public and go down to the strip today and try and ask people what freedom means to them as well. So it's just going to be a little personal journey I'm on. My views and perspectives are a little more extreme than most, and I'm willing to definitely accept that. But I ultimately answer any question with freedom, as long as no one has been harmed. And if somebody has been harmed, obviously due process must occur and justice must be received. But until someone has been harmed, freedom should always be the answer to any question. And that's basically the philosophy I have and the way I live my life and what I'm doing. I wrote a book, and it's called A Handbook to Freedom. Originally it was called A Handbook to Freedom and World Peace. It was just a little bit lengthy, so I narrowed it down. Make it roll off the tongue a little bit better, but it's just an idea of solutions. A lot of times our politicians are dividing and conquering us, and nobody works together for solutions. And I'm just trying to look at each problem that the world faces and throw out a freedom-based solution and go from there. I ultimately think that the local population should have the utmost power, and if you look at what the federal government is doing, they're on a self-destructive path anyway. They're leading us to a war or dollar collapse. One of the two is almost surely on the horizon, so all we can do is prepare the best we can locally as a community. And In order to do that, we can pass a petition and create what's called a home rule charter and pass our own ways locally and create the utmost power locally. And a true freedom-based society would have freedom as the foundation. So in order to do that, no justice, or no victim, no crime. And that ensures that we have the utmost freedom. And from there, the second law should be, if a victim, or if there is a victim, that due process should occur and that justice will be received. And then we can have a society that functions, and we can create our laws and base everything from there. With this comes the idea that the federal government is wasting our money and doing criminal things with it. And at what point do we stand up and do something different? We had a revolution in this country over a 2% tax on tea, and that's what we're celebrating. But yet we get 20 to 30% of our income just taken away from us and ripped away from our lives, and we know they're wasting it on frivolous things, and we can see it in every aspect, and none of us are okay with it, but none of us know what to do. And they're all leading us on a path of self-destruction, and we're all just like hopeless. But I think that the answer is freedom, and we just have to figure out how to make that happen. And instead of allowing these criminals to perpetuate the stuff that they're doing, I individually have stood up all by myself and have said I will no longer be an accessory to your crimes, and I will not pay the federal government an income tax. And I know it's a different perspective than most, but that's how far I believe in freedom, and that's how far I believe that they're doing things wrong in this world, and I will not be an accessory to their crimes. I won't continue to fund it. So I instead have a belief that we should be able to voluntarily choose our money and choose where to put it. And if we put it in our local communities, if you look around, our local communities are ran by we the people locally, and the federal government doesn't do much anyway. So if we, let's say, 20% of our income tax goes to the federal government and they frivolously waste it, and we decide to keep it all, we would be able to fund programs like people on disability. Let's say 2% of our income tax goes to that now. Well, if we kept 20%, we could easily throw 4 or 5% and double what our local community is getting in that, or roads, or any of the things that we really, really want, but we can do it voluntarily. And businesses can also decide what they want to charge and voluntarily post it onto their walls what percent sales tax, whether it's 0 to keep their prices low, or whether they charge 100% sales tax and give it all to the schools because that's what they feel like doing. But from there, we can voluntarily all decide how we want to do things and decide what we want to fund, what we want to give the money to, who we want to give the money to. We'll fund the businesses that we like where their sales taxes go, and Republicans can fund Republican stuff and Democrats can fund Democratic stuff. But ultimately, we should be able to have the choice in a free, voluntary society. In a country that calls itself free, we should have the free decision to decide where we work all of our lives for. 20% is 20% of your life's work. You have to understand that, and you're just letting them waste it. There comes a point where we stand up, and this is that point. And at this point, I'm doing it all by myself. I am running for sheriff, and I think legally on the basis that I refuse to be an accessory. Legally, if you help fund someone and they commit a crime, you're an accessory to that crime. So if our government's committing a crime, I'm an accessory. So legally, I think I can represent myself and stand up in court. A lawyer can't, because they have to abide by the bar in order to keep their license. I don't have to abide by the bar. I believe in jury nullification. I will stand up and represent myself. So, like I said, in 1774, we threw some tea into a harbor and said we will have enough of this. And by 1776, we changed things. And at this point, I myself am standing up and saying I will not have this. And hopefully other people do as well. And this can be the beginning of a change, because the government, they want violence. They have violence monopolized. We've allowed them to have all the bombs and the weapons of mass destruction and all this chaos. And government should not have weapons that the people don't have, because in order for the people to be able to govern the government, you got to have the same access to weapons. Otherwise, if they have bigger weapons, they can control us and, I mean, be susceptible. And that's where freedom really lies, is because if you look, none of us are free in any way, shape, or form, because we all depend on the government. And some people say, well, I don't get a check from the government. I don't depend on the government. Yeah, we all do. Because we can't eat. We can't do anything. We depend on the system in place to such an extent that we can't survive off of it. If somebody is completely 100% off the grid self-sufficient, then yes, you are free, and that is absolute freedom, and that's what we need to strive for. And I think the easiest way logically to do that would be as a community. And if we're prepared to feed ourselves and survive locally, then we'll be absolutely free and be able to survive. And I think that is where true freedom lies, because if you can't eat without going to the grocery store, then you're not free. You depend on that grocery store. If you can't survive without electricity, you depend on the electricity or gas or all these things. And if you look, all the owners of these corporations that own everything, they're all intertwined with politics, and they all are the same people that just own everything. The people that own the corporations own the power, own the gas, own the food, own the media, own the electric, own every single aspect of our lives. They own it all, and we are fully dependent upon it in every way, shape, or form, and cannot live without it. That, my friends, is not freedom. That, my friends, is dependency and almost a slavery to a system that you can't break away from. So how do you break away from that system? That's what I'm proposing, is a whole different thought and a way of doing things, to step away and let we the people decide our own fate locally. We do what's called a home rule charter, and then we vote in our own laws and our own ways of life. And there's basically 3 rules in which society functions. Like I said, the no victim, no crime. The second one is, if there is a victim, due process must occur. And the third one is the Bill of Rights. It's because the Bill of Rights ensures the people's freedom. We're not supposed to be a democracy, because a democracy is where 51% of the people can decide to murder 49% of the other people, and it can be legal, and I don't think that's right. So in a republic, the individual rights remain supreme, and that's what we have to do, is focus on freedom. And if we just have the freedom to do our own thing and be left alone, maybe we'll accept others' freedom a little bit. And that's where I go down into philosophy, and I like to try to talk to philosophy to everybody, and just see everybody's perspective. Because if we can accept somebody else's perspective, as long as they're not hurting nobody, then that's kind of what we'll do to create peace in this world, is we'll all just be able to get along and say, you know what, I want my freedom, so I'll have to accept theirs, and we just do it from there. And instead of being divided and conquered, we sit down and work together for solutions. And that's kind of what I'm doing, and the reason why I'm doing all this. And I believe freedom will create peace in this world, and that's just fundamentally what I believe. So, like I said, today I'm getting ready to go to the Strip and talk to people about freedom and what it means to them. And I guess that's basically my philosophy, and I'll be asking them the other philosophical questions. And maybe one day, if somebody from opposing sides just want to sit down and have an open discussion, I sure would appreciate that. I'm trying to set up a forum where we do that with the local sheriffs. They've all agreed to it. I now have a place to do it, and it's just a matter of getting everybody to commit. So we're in the process of that too, which I think is going to be very exciting for the community, and just a very, very good thing that we need to do. And it's hopefully going to help us create solutions instead of just fighting all the time and dividing us. So that's ultimately what I'm trying to do, is just create a little peace and freedom in this world. And like I said, if anybody wants to talk to me or have any more ideas to include, my number is 573-286-8316. If you want my book, you can find it on my YouTube channel. I try and give it away for free. Or you can write me or whatever, send me a text, and I'll send it out to you. I'll send it for free. So I appreciate everybody. Thank you guys, and happy July 4th, Independence Day.